Welcome to Listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan, a podcast about the art and hobby of miniature painting. I'm Mike.
And I'm Dan. Thank you for joining us on our journey to become better, braver, and happier painters. So today, since we all have so much time on our hands, we decided to talk about crowd-funded art projects and games. So Mike, what kind of crowdfunding platforms do you know of and use?
Well, I know of a few, but I've only ever used Kickstarter. I saw an ad for Kickstarter on a Facebook group, and I kind of went down that rabbit hole ever since. That was a few years ago now. What about you?
I have used Kickstarter many times for many things, and I've also used Indiegogo. That just seems to work pretty much the exact same as Kickstarter. And I've done a few GoFundMes, but that's not really for gaming and stuff, but it is a part of the crowdfunding universe that we see. And there's a bunch of other ones also, but I think those are, at least Kickstarter and GoFundMe are the big ones, but I think they serve different purposes.
Yeah, I didn't even know GoFundMe did anything. I thought it was all just charitable type things where you're just trying to help somebody.
Well, it is, but we've all heard the stories of people having their figures stolen, or someone's house burns down, unfortunately, or car accident, or any number of unfortunate events, and we're trying to help those folks out a little bit, especially in our community. But I think it's still part of that universe. You're helping someone out. You're giving money. Sometimes you get something back. Sometimes you don't. And that's kind of why I mentioned it. I think for our purposes that we talked today, it probably wouldn't come up very much.
Well, sure, but it's nice, though, in the world that we live in right now, in COVID-19, etc., to hear about how the hobby community, not necessarily in relation to COVID-19, but how when things like people's figures get stolen or something along those lines happens, that others come to their aid. So that's cool. I didn't know of any of that before, but that does make sense. And it's pretty cool that the community would do such a thing. So what kind of projects have you backed on Indiegogo?
Well, I stumbled upon somehow the fabulous Custodes from If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device on YouTube. And I haven't seen him before, and I was like, well, I've got to give that a try. So I got my three fabulous Custodes, and they're sitting in a box ready to be painted up with some actually pretty cool detailed bases and a bunch of other extra stuff that they threw in there. But that's what I did. I kind of forgot about it for the longest time, and it took them an awful long time to get this stuff to me. But that's all right, because I had like 8th edition and a bunch of other stuff to work on in the meantime. But I'm happy I have them, and hopefully I can get them painted up, or at least start it this summer, get them done, and their oiled bodies placed on display.
I tell you, I cannot look at, I only have 3 Custodes models, and I can't look at them the same way after you showed me that YouTube channel.
It's a great story. You have to start from the beginning and just go through it, because it's so funny.
People have way too much time on their hands.
Well, I'm working, from home now, and I have, I'm sure they can come out with some more episodes since they're all stuck at home too.
Nice. But so you did that. Is that the only project you've done on Indiegogo?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's just one of those odd, weird ones. Not sure why they did it on there, but the management system wasn't nearly as good. But that's okay. I got some metal figures out of it. They're pretty good. The resin bases are pretty awesome. So, thumbs up.
No, I looked at Indiegogo. I actually haven't found an active miniature project on there ever. So that's why I've looked a few times. I've never used it or bid on it, or I don't even have an account. Or if I have an account, it's because I had to create one to search. I don't remember. One of the two, either Kickstarter or Indiegogo, you had to create an account in order even to search. Yeah, everything I've seen is like from years and years ago, and not recent. Seems like most miniature companies have moved to Kickstarter or use Kickstarter as their main.
That's how I'm feeling. I think it's that's how things have evolved. This is the big powerhouse right now. This is the big company. You can get what you need. The management systems seem to work pretty well. It's tried true, and it's been efficient. So why not continue using it?
So I don't know, I kind of want to go into the perils and risks of Kickstarter to some extent, but why don't we let's start off on a positive note. Has there been a Kickstarter that you backed that over-delivered, like under-promised and over-delivered?
Yeah, I definitely have had at least one of them that had under-delivered, but it wasn't miniature related at all. And we can get into that one later on if you want to. Actually, the one that over-delivered was the ghost brushes. I was able to, I got so many brushes out of that, and I'm still using them. And they're, I'm finding different ways to use them now, because I don't use them as my primary brushes. They still are performing. I figured out how to get them clean now, because before I had a problem with them staining because they're white bristles. But I'm still enjoying them. And I got so many of them, like I said, that they definitely got up for it. I'm just like, holy crap, there's so many brushes here, and I don't need to order anything else for a while.
You gave me a few too, so thank you.
Yes, I did. I gave you a bunch of them, and I still have a whole shitload of them left,
nice.
Which is all right. So now I'm just waiting for the dry brushes to come in at some point. It looks like October, so I'm going to blame the coronavirus for that one.
Remind me at the end of this to tell what I'm doing with Wish. Just remind me later on.
Okay, that's probably the big one right now. The other ones have just have done what they needed to do.
Right.
They have a very a solid management program, and when they tell you this is what you're going to get and this is what your stretch goals are, and if you want to buy some extra things and add-ons, here you go, click on the boxes, and it's very efficient, pretty straightforward of what's going on. Lots of email messages for the ones I get. I've been pretty happy with it, and I think this is why people are going here, and it's tried and true. These companies aren't just doing like ones-offs, but they're doing a few of them, and that's probably something you could talk about a little bit more, are companies that are using this as a stepping stool or actually a part of their business model.
Sure. Yeah. Oh man. That's with CMON now, right? That's pretty much all they are, as a Kickstarter company, it seems. That every time one of their Kickstarter ends, about 2 weeks later another Kickstarter starts. And good for them. They do well, but it's certainly that seems to be their, I don't know, the best way to say it is that their pre-order system, as opposed to like doing pre-orders on their website or something. It seems that they use Kickstarter to create their pre-orders. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Well, I think it's because they don't, if you have a solid product and it's going to sell well, if you just get it backed and you get people to invest in it beforehand, you don't have to use your readily available funds, which is an interesting way of running a business. Not saying it's bad. It's definitely not old school. It's definitely a new way of thinking. They've been fairly successful with doing it this way. And I think other companies are following suit. I only look at the stuff that I see online that are figures related. I do have a couple other little things that I've done in the past through Kickstarter, but I'm not searching for some of those things. So I'm sure there's like authors and probably people making movies and videos for music, making music. I'm sure all that stuff's on there because, well, Patreon. We're not talking about Patreon right now. We're talking about Kickstarter. If you don't, instead of getting a loan, you're asking people to say, hey, give me the money. You'll get something out of this that most likely you would purchase anyway.
Right.
So, if you put the money up front, it can help get this going. And, you don't have to worry about losing funds if it doesn't come through, then obviously, you get your money back, or I don't know. All of mine have been funded, so I don't know what happens when it doesn't get funded.
Oh, I can speak to that. I've had like 4 or 5 that I've backed that either got canceled or were unsuccessful.
Oh, canceled too, huh?
Oh, yes. Okay. I actually ran a gambit where I think it was 5 projects in a row that I backed that were either canceled or unsuccessful. And I was like, I wonder if I should let people know that I'm going to back their project and it'll fail now.
So do you think that's because people or companies were trying to not necessarily take advantage of it, but were trying to use this not understanding the model, maybe?
I think there were a few scenarios. Okay, so I backed this one that was canceled midway through. They were almost at their funding goal. I feel like they would have reached it, but I think what happened was Games Workshop got involved because they basically were doing like Sisters of Battle based on chapters of GW Space Marines. So they didn't call them like female space wolves, but they called them like the female wolves of this. And there were actually I backed for some character models that looked really cool because the box deals would have been great. It looked like they had, I know that at one point there was like $100 and it was like 120 models or something like that. And it was very abrupt. It was basically after speaking with our lawyers, we have to cancel our campaign.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. There are other companies that I don't know how they get around GW's IP patrol because stuff I've seen like Heresy Labs and stuff like that, it's definitely like, oh my God, that's just not your IP,
Yeah.
But what do I know?
Show about about IP. We probably have to do a show on IP and
recasting.
how folks are able to get around it.
Yeah, really, really bring a lawyer in for sure. But so that was one case. I had one from a company that had met its funding goal, but was not selling as fast as it wanted, so it canceled the project. And so it was it was successfully funded. I'm not going to say the name of it. Yeah, I was kind of ticked off, and it would have been my first venture into the world of Chibi, a Chibi type board game, and that's all I'm going to say. So that was a little bit shady. I felt like. Anyways, and then I had two that were they were just straight miniatures. Like they were straight. One was a artist version, like similar to the Gollum miniatures review I did, where this was a piece based on Michelangelo's artwork. That just didn't have enough funding. There was another one that was similar to that didn't have enough funding, and then another one, I guess their casting companies pulled out and they couldn't find a new caster, so they killed the Kickstarter for now. And so that's I respect. I'm glad that they didn't come to that other conclusion because I have dealt with a Kickstarter that switched casting companies and handled it poorly. Now, Tim from Ouroboros Miniatures is the interview we're going to add to this episode, and I will say that he had a similar problem with a caster for his CP Newskin bust, but he got a new caster, but was very communicative, open conversation about what was going on. Nothing was out of the blue. Like there was never any radio silence. So we knew that it was a bit delayed because of that, but at least, he was being a good businessman and providing customer service. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so, but I do want to say I have had a few, Dan, that have gone so far above, like the two I backed from Gollum Miniatures, their actually pieces came early, like a month early from their delivery time, which is like incredible to me. In Kickstarter, you always expect the delays, I backed Reaper's Bones 4, and they had some production delays, and there were some specific figures that were delayed and stuff, and I had ordered a figure that was delayed. They added, I only ordered one of the paint set. They added the extra paint set without me asking for it. They added a couple other miniatures to it, and so
that's pretty cool.
So they communicated. So that's kind of the key, right? You'll see a theme of communication, and then there's I backed 3 of Mythical World Miniatures Kickstarters. The first I did was their bust. It was the first bust I ever bought was a Jack the Ripper, and I still need to go back and paint that. I attempted to paint it the first time, and it was just a disaster. And what you may or may not know this about me already, but I am not a ripperologist, but I have read a crap ton about Jack the Ripper. I just find it it's
Well,
such a
geez,
fascinating time period.
we should probably have a show about that because I got about 6 books upstairs about
Oh,
Jack the
dude,
Ripper.
you're like okay. See, even on the podcast, people that have known each other for a few years now, we've learned something new about each other. I have some great books. Like my wife bought me this case book thing, and you open it up, and as you go through, it's like got copies of original documents and stuff along those lines. It's so much fun to look at. I actually was just we're terrible about unpacking books in this house, and so we lived in our house, lived in this place for 3 years now, and we still have boxes and boxes of books to go through. And I just found one of my bookshelf boxes that had several of my Jack the Ripper books in it.
Ah, that's funny.
Funny. But so and then they had two. I am always looking for things for bases. And they did 2 different graveyard. They have this graveyard theme thing that they do where they put out bits and scenery, resin scenery pieces. And so the first one was like tombstones and broken tombstones. And Dan, if you need a tombstone, all I did was I backed their level 1 pledge, and I have enough. Believe me, I have a full graveyard of different types of tombstones. It was amazing. And then all the stretch goals with all these little. I've used the little urns and pots and other graveyard burial type things for other miniatures. And then I backed they did coffin ones for different coffins. And that was, I've got like 40 coffins. And honestly, in both of them, I didn't spend more than $30 on each one of them. And I got a crap ton of stuff. So I've got your back if you need some tombstone graveyard paraphernalia.
Don't need any of that stuff yet. I'll put that in my back pocket.
So I just wanted to put that out there that there are companies that nail it, but I've backed others that have done it, that have just done, they did what they promised, which is great. And I wouldn't hesitate, to back them again. What was your first Kickstarter that you backed? What got you in?
So the first one was actually, and I'm sure this is like one of those generic, like sayings like, don't talk about, your friends' wives and things like that, or don't go into business with a friend, some of those kind of cliches kind of things. So this one I hear is for a friend of mine who wanted to travel around the world, but he was able to get a lot of stuff donated to him for people to do this Kickstarter. And it probably underperformed only because it didn't provide one of the items that was promised. So I'm sure there was some legalese behind that because it was a bottle of alcohol.
Yeah.
So he was able to travel around the world, which was cool, and do all the things he's ever wanted to do. He's definitely a free spirit, and he's still a free spirit. But yeah, that was the first one. And then I didn't do anything again for probably another 3 years, which was to back a book from a comic book artist. Because back when I was young and when I had lots and lots of money as a high schooler, I was enjoying my BattleTech, and I enjoyed collecting comic books. So you and I talked about that a little bit last week when we were chatting about comic books. Or actually, it was the other day. So this artist had some stuff, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I can get a signed, lithograph, and I can get a book of all his art and everything. Or not all of his art, but the current art from the last couple of years. So so I did that one, and then a novel. And then, actually, I'm trying to think, do I have any? I'm just going to go through my list of stuff. A book. My favorite movie of all time is The Thing. And so I got Frozen Hell, which was the book that was made or written that inspired the movie The Thing, the first one, and the remake and the second remake. Ghost brushes, which I've done twice, actually. So I have the regular brushes, and I'm waiting for the dry brushes, and those will be up someday. And that was my first foray into miniature stuff. One of the scale color ones, because they do an awful lot of Kickstarters, it seems, which is cool because they have some cool figures and they have some cool paints and stuff like that they put out. And the big granddaddy of them all is the clan invasion from Catalyst, because you guys know I like BattleTechs. So I went in with both feet and one of my arms, and I should probably get another 200 or 300 mechs that I don't have to print on my 3D printer, because holy crap, there's so much stuff.
Nice.
And now I'm waiting for, actually my last one is the purity seals and parchment transfers from Forgotten Chapters, because I hate writing freaking scrolls and shit and that little tiny writing on purity seals on Space Marines and shit. It's so tiny. So someone smarter than me decided to have a Kickstarter on printing out like a bazillion of these things. So I'll cut off a couple sheets and hand them to you, and that should be good for a couple armies, because that's a shit ton of freaking little decals to put on flags and scrolls and books and everything else. So that'll be here in a couple months. I don't know when we're going to be getting the BattleTech stuff, because there's multiple phases, and because they're all produced in China, I don't know. There might be like a bat in one of those things or something. So who knows when we're going to get those shipped to us. So
that just ended. Man, I wish you would have told me about that one. I probably would have backed it too.
I totally forgot. You know what? I totally forgot. I get an email and I'm like, what the hell is this thing? So I think I have some, like, there's some that are going on that it said like, remind me, but I just forget sometimes. I just,
No, that's okay. That's okay. I don't need to back anything.
So that's, yes. So that's my short story. And I know lots of people put lots of stuff in. The one I really wanted to do a long time ago was the infamous Robotech game, which I'm glad I didn't throw any money at, but I really, really wanted to. But those are, that one like came in like 3 years behind or something, and underproduced and performed and everything else. And I'm just like, I'm just going to go with something solid. I'm picky enough now and in a position where I can just pick and choose. And it's not like I have like 3,000 Space Marines to paint. So I don't really have to purchase anything else. It's just fun to throw my money at companies that produce cool, shiny things.
And I started, the first one I ever saw was Tombstone by Black Scorpion Miniatures. And I backed that. And that was, I probably a little bit overspent, but it's a crap ton of miniatures. Your first Kickstarter, you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. But they're all resin, so it's like, I think I have 60 different variation of cowboys and undead cowboys and cowgirls and stuff. It's for an art, like a turn-based skirmish game, which we attempted to play, but my kid's attention span when learning new game. What I should have done is I should have worked out all the rules and stuff before I even approached them. That was pretty cool. I've actually painted a few of the miniatures from that. They're small though. They are true 28 millimeter scale. So
yeah,
they're a little bit rough. And then I ventured into, I think it's when I first started. Oh yeah. So the next one, I got into a really big thing of like trying to help fund kind of one-off miniature companies or small miniature companies. And so like, what is the name? I can't read my handwriting. So a guy named Jody Segal did this thing with this undead resin knight, and it was really cool. So I backed that. Then I ventured into my first board game, which was Reload by Archeon Studios. Now, from what I understand,
I swore I did that one. Hold on.
Did you do Load or Reload?
Shit, I can't remember. There was one and I got like 10 freaking figures and they're 28 millimeter, and I got like a dude who's like beating people up with a guitar, and the mage dude.
Oh no, that's not Reload. That's not Load. This Load is a board game.
I don't know.
Actually, it's a what do they call it? It's a lane defense board game. So, do you know what that means?
That's
okay. Nope. So, have you ever seen the game Plants vs Zombies?
Oh, I
So
know what
yeah,
you're talking
it's
about
very
now.
similar, but
Okay.
it's in a board game context. And actually, we've played it a few times. It's fun. But that took a long time to fulfill, very long time to fulfill. And then I had a couple that I was a little bit bummed out about. Like I had this cool Salvation and Steel one that I backed that were these kind of D&D gaming miniatures, and I was like, oh yeah, these are really cool looking, and for stuff I wanted to learn how to paint and stuff, like great shapes on like armor and stuff like that. And they were so tiny. I can't even say they're 28 millimeter. I was like, oh, wow. um, and then I backed, probably the longest one for me was Lords of Hellas by Awakened Realms, man. That game took forever, like 2.5, 3 years almost to deliver in completion. Now I got my board game, I would say within about a year and a half, which that's not crazy outside the realm of outrageousness for a board game, but any of the extra stuff, and it would come in piecemeal. Like I get a little box and a big box and a little box and a big box for up to another year and a half afterwards, and so by that time, I kind of lost interest in the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, the miniatures are okay. A little small again, but again, it's that PVC board game plastic. So stuff that I thought I'd be
Mm.
able to grab and maybe make a display miniature out of, no, 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 no. Um, but I would say also, I backed the Lady Mechanica one from Kabuki. That's I guess now Tago. I got the 75. I think the 75 millimeter her Lady Mechanica and Tesla. Those are great models, and they came in around a little bit late, but the Kickstarter a little bit late is on time in Kickstarter. But yeah, I mean, I probably backed. I backed two by Ouroboros Miniatures. They've delivered on time, beautiful models. And you'll learn in the interview how he picks his sculpts and stuff. And then the other one that was cool that I wish I could have spent more money on was Zealot Miniatures did a whole Twisting Catacombs thing of Minotaurs that were they were, no pun intended, but they were beefy in size, and the Berserker that I bought was a lot of fun to paint, and so. But I backed the Scale 75 artist colors as well. I am not backing the instant colors. Um, just I don't know. I have with the Donna Citadel contrast paints that I already have, and my learning to use. I do like the Scale 75 intensity inks a lot. They're probably my main inks that I use, but yeah, I don't really have a need for instant colors. You know what I mean?
I'm taking some lessons on Patreon now, and it's very limited. So I'm using only like 2 or 3 colors, and I'm just learning how to blend a
Mm-hmm.
little better and how to mix things up. So to need to have all this extra stuff, I just don't need it anymore, and I don't have space on my desk anymore. It's just so it's just easier for me to just try to keep it down and use up all the paints that I have, so I can make some more
Right.
space.
Well, and I will say this: if anybody has an acquisition compulsion disorder, like kind of I do, you don't ever visit Kickstarter. Okay, just don't. Don't get on Kickstarter. It's a rabbit hole. There are tons of miniature options on there. But I do want to talk about the evolution of Kickstarter with you because this is particularly relevant for you with a 3D printer. So now and more, I'm seeing instead of actual miniatures, STL files and 3D renders that you can now back companies to get STL files to print your own miniatures. And so do you think is this really the wave of the future? Is this?
Well, I think we could probably do, another. Did we already do a show
No, we haven't
on
done 3D printing yet.
But we've talked about it, and
We keep threatening to do a
it
show on 3D
is.
printing.
We got every time we come up with another topic, we keep forgetting to write it down. So, it's good and bad. I totally understand where they're coming from, especially if you're an artist and you can do some great 3D renders. If you're able to just sell your STL to people to print out for you, that's a heck of a lot cheaper than you making it and finding a distributor and a producer and getting it shipped and all this other stuff. And So you end up becoming a small company. A lot of those folks, I would imagine, would just do it in wax and like traditional ways, and either making it in plastic, resin, actually just resin and or pourable resin and metal, because that was just the way it was done before, and it's a lot easier to produce. But now, if you make something really good, it's no longer on your shoulders to produce it. You send it off, and those people can print it off, and a lot of them will give you the licenses where you can sell those pieces if you want to. That's pretty cool. The things that you find on Thingiverse, you really don't get the licenses for them in most cases, so you really shouldn't be selling them, because that is in line with recasting. But that's a whole other story itself, right, too.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do an episode on IP and recasting for sure. And we have a couple people that have asked to talk about it, so we'll get them on.
Cool. So for me as a 3D printer, yeah, that's pretty cool. But it kind of sucks at the same time, because if my printer is not printing the way that I want it to print, well, I spent, $20 and I have, 500 figures that I'm supposed to print off, but I can only get like 3 or 4 of them that are really able to print well. So, they come back to that cost thing, well, on their end, they got the money because they were able to produce the product itself, and that's pretty cool. But I didn't live up to my end to be able to print off all this stuff to make it look good. Like you said, we could definitely talk about that in a different show, because we could also talk about like IP, who really owns an IP on something, when, if an artist is able to produce it themselves, and what if they're at home and, people that sculpt skulls and put them on a shoulder pad, are they really stealing the idea?
Mm-hmm.
They're recasting it. So there's a lot of it in there that we probably should talk about at the time. But yes, I've noticed it also, and it's not just on Kickstarter. And this would definitely fade into Patreon, because even though we could talk about Patreon in a different episode, I noticed an awful lot on Patreon, because people are able to produce the models very quickly, or the STLs, and people can just come in and say, hey, I know what you're going to do this month. This is what I want. I'm going to go ahead and just, pay the 10 or 15 bucks it is. If sometimes it can be a little bit more expensive, but you own the rights and licensing to it, so you can sell these products. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely a catch. And that's what I don't see that's not what I see on Kickstarter, because they don't have the means and the funds to do it at first. So that's why they're doing it on Kickstarter. But once you get going, you have your software already. So you might as well just go ahead and, I'm going to continue doing what I was doing. Let me get a little better at making some armor. I can make some better terrain. I can make these trees look a little better. Hey, I can do better sidewalk or walls. I'll sell those next month. Hey, everybody, this is what I'm going to sell next month. And so you can see that kind of life cycle, getting the money in order to fund your project. And once it starts to work, then you can just create more products and go into the other realm, which is Patreon, or if there's other ones out there like that. I guess you could do it free for YouTube. Nope, never mind. You can't do it on YouTube unless you're going to teach people how to do it. You can put it online free. You can do that also, but why do it for free when you get paid for it, right?
Very true. Very, very true. So one of the things we touched on a little bit is that whole business model of using Kickstarter, basically using other people's money. Now, with CMON, it seems to have worked. But from what I understand, there have been several other companies that have, what they basically have done is funded a project and then used that funding to fund another project, and then launched another project to fund the project before it, and then they got caught. Then they got caught where something happened, a factory burned down, and they had an expense or something along those lines, and then they're not delivering. And so, it's one of those things that I think CMON was lucky because of what they started with were ones that they could feel pretty secure in their success. And they've built a reputation now of producing. I backed the Green Horde Zombicide game because I wanted to get into Zombicide and try to play it as a board game. And we played it a few times, and the kids kind of like it. I'm all right on it, but you do get a crap ton of miniatures for the play. Like, they do open up and add miniatures to it, so you do get your bang for your buck with their Kickstarters. They've been successful. There have been tons of ones. I know Archon. There was a whole thing where, I guess, Protos Games failed to deliver Aliens versus Predator, and then
Oh, that's the one. That's one of them.
and they broke off. Archon broke off from them and started their own company. Then, either that or Archon came in and tried to rescue Protos, something along those lines. So there's a whole bunch of drama around that. I mean, they delivered. The miniatures are fine. I actually liked they offered in their stretch goals. They had characters that were added to the game, and the next stretch goal after that was basically an ultimate size version of it. And so you kind of had, you had character A, and then after they reached a stretch goal, then you had ultimate character A as well. So you got both of those miniatures. And I actually thought the bigger ones were very nice, even though they were in that kind of weird board game plastic instead of just straight up polystyrene. You know what I mean? And so, and there have been quite a few of those that haven't delivered, and I've seen a lot of angry people with it. You know what I mean? And I know there's some companies are dealing with right now is post the world of COVID-19, or right in the middle of the world of COVID-19. A lot of these pieces are manufactured in China, and China is just still in the process of reopening, basically. And so they're entirely backlogged, and a lot of these companies' manufacturing capabilities have been switched to making things like masks and stuff along those lines. And so they're still not even back to manufacturing miniatures and stuff, you know. So, you know, it's going to be a rough go, I think, on some of these board game companies for a while. And if you're out there waiting for production, like I backed the Nocturna Paints one, the End Paints series, that's supposed to deliver soon. I got no expectation of that delivering by the end of this calendar year. They say they're going to start shipping in a few weeks, but I'm not holding my breath. You know what I mean? Reality has checked in, you know, and I just ordered a miniature from Italy. And I'm like, yeah, I fully expect that as a Christmas present. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's the whole thing. I don't want to go into too much of it because that is definitely an IP show, because I did buy a Leonardo miniature that was not done by Eastman or Laird or the comic book company that owns, or the studio that owns Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, yeah, I got a lot of, I have a lot of mixed emotions about it. You know what I mean? I do know it's, but I don't want to go too much into it because that's a full nother episode, and we're, you know, I don't want to take the train off the rails here. Anyways, yeah, my love of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles overwhelmed my sanctimonious side that was like, that's somebody else's intellectual property. So, I'm human. What can I say?
I totally get it. I'm like that with like things that I own or don't own in my house. Yeah. Hey, we should do it. We should do an episode about like comic books.
That'd be great. Too. That would be.
I have like a whole yeah. Actually, I think there's some comic books I probably shouldn't even talk
about. Now, see, I got into comic books really when Image broke off of Marvel. So the artists and people from Marvel and DC.
Yep. I totally remember.
And I bought every number one I could get my hands on from Image Comics.
Hey, I was just about the same way.
And so I have like Turok Dinosaur Hunter, I have Brigade, I have a whole bunch of these other number ones. You know, and now my favorite, that's part of it. I couldn't tell you very many comic book artists, but my favorite artist is by far Jay Lee, and I've mentioned him a few times in interviews because he's the one who did the original Dark Tower by Stephen King graphic novel art. And so, yeah, I kind of, anywhere that he went, I tried to collect from him, his stuff as well. But, you know, and it's funny because you know, a lot of my son knows comic books now, and he's like, who's Jay Lee? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm old, but because Jay Lee's also the one who did the original
Yeah.
like G.I. Joe and Transformer crossover, and so which was a pretty big comic book at the time, or at least looking back at it now, it's much more much more monumental. A lot of Hasbro money going on there. But anyways, so do you have anything else to add about Kickstarter or crowdfunding or?
No, I don't have anything else to really add. I'm sure we could talk about like all kinds of really cool things because you brought up comic books, so I'm looking on Kickstarter right now, looking at different kinds of comic books, and there's quite a universe out there of comic books that people are trying to produce or want sequels to. I've seen a couple artists in here that just want something funded. Maybe they are using that as a part or a way of getting more money because they know that their stuff is going to sell. So you might as well sign a couple things and do a couple extra drawings and send those out. Some of the guys that I follow on Facebook and other platforms, they do the same things where they show off what they have and what they're going to sell. But this is a way of getting the money in hand first, producing what you need to do, and then possibly getting a secondary market on it, which is not a bad thing. It's not, so it's especially during these times, if you can't go to conventions and you can't get your product in the stores, this is a good way to
Right. Yeah, that's a good point too, is that now is a unique opportunity not a unique opportunity. How about a unique challenge? So Dan, tell me, what have you been working on lately? What's on your desk?
Oh, well, I'm continuing to just practice different techniques and play with colors, but I'm really trying to concentrate on my Dark Angels and every once in a while just changing it up with whatever I have just laying around. So that's pretty much all that I'm working on. So I have black, green that I've been painting. So there's only so many different ways you can do that. But I do follow some folks on Patreon, so I've been practicing some of their things. And that's been actually pretty cool. I've learned a lot of neat techniques in the last 2 months. And I've had the time to actually do it because someone sneezed or coughed or ate a bat or something. So that's what I've been working on. I do have a new toy that about 2 weeks ago, I got bored and saw some stupid advertisement for this red grass wet palette. So I was like, hey, everybody in the universe has been using one of these. Let me give it a try. And it has been pretty darn cool. I've really enjoyed what it does to my painting. I'm not the kind of person who thinks that the tools make a huge difference in things. I think the right tool does the same thing no matter who makes it, who manufactures it. Whatever they have sprinkled on this and what kind of weird magic and summonings they've done, it has made a difference. And I'm still trying to figure it out. I used the Mastersons before that for years, but I wanted to give something else a try. And I know that companies are, still needing a little bit of help because of our current events. So I was like, you know what? I'll throw some money at these folks because I was going to buy it anyway at some point. I might as well just make it sooner than later. And I've really enjoyed it. I've really liked the way that it thins out the paints. I haven't carried it around anywhere yet, so I haven't used my little strap thing. The magnetic trays on the side is a pain in the ass, but I see where it can become useful.
Yeah, see, I put everything on my wet
But
palette. I know we're not supposed to put metals or inks or washes, but I just put them on there anyways. I know.
I did that before. Also, it wasn't a big deal. But I'm trying. I've taken a step back and trying to relearn things properly because I learned using craft paints 40 years ago on how to paint stuff, and that is what's been ingrained in my brain. So when they say mix this with that, I'm giving it a try and see if it works. If it doesn't, then I don't retrain myself. But wet palette was like the most foreign thing in the world because I used tiles. I used to put all my stuff on tiles and use that. And I started using a wet palette about 5 years ago, and I was like, holy crap, this is cool. I have to use this now. This is what I need to do. And that's just how I learn to paint. So I'm being very intentional when I'm doing certain things now because I have little time. I don't have an hour here, an hour there. Sometimes I have a full day where I can concentrate on, like, how do I get this thin the correct way? How do, let me retrain my muscle memory to know the brushes are supposed to go in a particular direction. Because I do the mop thing. I used to do the mop thing up to about 3 or 4 months ago. And I'm realizing that that's really, instead of 2 coats, it takes 15 coats because, I'm slopping everything all over the place. So I'm just trying to relearn some basic items, some basic things, relearn some stuff. I have to go back through all my old notes, through all my training and everything, watching YouTube videos still, a little bit more intentional now, really listening to what the artists have to say. And so that's really taken up a lot of my time. So yes, I'm practicing black. Why? Because black is a pain in the ass to paint. And, that perfect shade of bone, I'm trying to find it. I find the recipe, but boy, that's a pain in the ass. And every color is a pain in the ass if you really want it to look a particular way. So that's what I've been practicing. I like blue. I got to do blue a good way. I figured blue out. I figured red out. I'm stoked about that. And now I got to figure out some other colors like yellow, black, and white. So yeah, let me think. So let's see. I'm doing an old Sisters of Battle Ephrael Stern. I have her old metal one from the Ephrael Stern and Inquisitor Hand diorama. So I was like, I need some more sisters to paint since I don't have already 2 boxes of them laying next to my
Did you buy
table.
two of the boxes?
I have tons of those.
Oh no, I meant did you buy 2 of the boxes, the Sisters of Battle boxes when GW came out with it?
No.
I was gonna say, holy crap.
No, I
dude.
just have small. No, I didn't buy 2. No. But I have boxes of them. And Space Marines. So I have a trillion Space Marines laying around everywhere. And I've been practicing some black. I have probably about 20 of them laying on my desk that I just like, I need to use blue on this figure. Let me practice my blue real quick and see what I can do. And I just use that as like a test figure. And then I'll throw him in my pot of purple goo and strip him or them, and then start off new. Respray paint them black or white and use them again. I probably use a new one every time because I have so many of those freaking things laying around.
Right. Just like,
so,
you have a dispenser, or just a dispenser, you reach up, pull it down, there's a Space Marine, then you're done with that.
I could. You can get the forks and you push the button and the fork pops out. Like when you go to fast food restaurants, I just push it and the Space Marine pops out. So I actually have some older metal Space Marines that have just been laying around for ages. So I'm trying to get those guys done. So I have one done here tomorrow that I'll put online. I just want to get the base done, and I got to get his backpack done. And I'm going to throw him up there, and then I'll go on to another Space Marine most likely. But I've been enjoying it, though. It hasn't been stressful. I've really enjoyed it, and I think that's why we do this. Not to fill up cases for me, even though I have armies that I need to complete instead of just figures. But it's cool just to say, hey, it's taking me 4 days to paint this guy's bolter, and not really be stressed about it. And it looks like shit when I'm done. So I'm like, yeah, that's all. I'm having fun doing it, even though it looks like crap. And that's what it's about, just having fun and enjoying it. So what about you, Mike? What kind of stuff are you working on?
First thing I want to say is, hold on, we'll do it this way. Well, first thing I want to point out is what you didn't mention was that you became very skeptical at a point when we first met. You were not using a wet palette.
Yes, when we first met, that was right around the time when I noticed a wet palette and was using a wet palette. So I was just like, whatever, this is, weird magic.
No, I'm just saying, at some level that gives credence to me to the red grass one. I use an old 11 by 17 tray that I found, like a serving tray that I found at a consignment sale and bought for 25 cents. That's my main wet palette with paper towels and, parchment paper. But I use a Masterson's as well, but I switch out the paper though. I use parchment paper and the sponge. But, that's my kind of travel, or when I'm completely nomadic, like I often am in the house. But so I kind of have been trying to make myself only work on one project at a time, like start it, finish it, because I have a bad habit of the hobby ADHD and bright shiny objects.
You should see my you should see my Instagram account. It's like, hey, it's his sister. Hey, I'm doing BattleTech. Hey, I'm drinking. Hey, I am running around in the woods. Hey, here's a spaceship.
Right.
Here's
right. No, I'm the same way. But so, in talking with Tim from Ouroboros Miniatures, he kind of challenged me to do his Leah bust that I bought through a Kickstarter. And so that's actually the main focus point right now. And I'm also, Cutthroat Cure, who is somebody we know, a guy named Devin, is doing this whole, May the Bust Be With You type thing for the month of May on his Twitch streaming. So that's, I was like, all right, so everybody's talking about busts. I'm going to do this bust. And so I got to say it's been a lot of fun. It's, I've only gotten to the level where I've built the display part of the piece, started painting it as well with just base coats right now. Cause I'm a person, I know like there are some people that can paint a leg and leave everything else black, but I have a hard time visualizing colors and reflections and stuff when a piece is just kind of only going piece by piece. So I have to kind of lay out my base. I got to block out my base colors really to start working lights and shadows, if that makes sense. I know there are people that don't have to. I'm one of those people that kind of has to. And so that's been the main focus. One cool thing too is that our friend Michael Proctor is now Twitch streaming on Tuesdays for Reaper, and I believe it's 4 p.m. Central Time when it's happening. And on his first Twitch stream, I actually was lucky enough to win a mystery box from Reaper. And so Reaper actually sent a nice mystery box. I got it less than a week after the show. It had an enormous skeletal dragon in it, 3 paints, pens and other type of stuff, stickers, and a really cool drawstring bag. So I was like, well, damn, that's pretty sweet. You know, that's that's a $40 miniature, you know what I mean? That they threw in for free. So that was pretty cool. But also, I will tell you this, he had a sculptor on with him that he was also talking to while he painted. And he does, Michael Proctor does a very good job asking questions and painting and interviewing at, kind of the same time. So he may be new to Twitch. So if people can check him out, that would be awesome, because I think you'll really get something out of it. And they're interactive, and he has somebody monitoring the chat. So they try not to miss questions and stuff like that. So, definitely check it out. But yeah, just the bust is the main thing, on my plate. I want to play with, more paints and stuff, because I got a few more of the AK Interactive third generation paints in, but they're not in the color scheme that I'm working on, so those are just gonna have to wait. And someday, Dan, I will get back to the Gundam series.
Okay.
No, I recorded it and it was terrible. I listened to it before. I was going to post it on the feed today, but it just was really bad. Bad sound quality, scattershot. People have been like, what the hell is he talking about? So I'm going to re-record that over the weekend, and then we'll post it soon. Keep content flowing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but that's really that's all that's on my plate. No. That's right. You were supposed to remind me of the Wish thing. So one other fun thing I kind of have set up for a future episode is that I'm running low on synthetic brushes, and I decided to check out Wish to see what they offered. And so I spent, I think it was a total of $20 shipping and everything. And I got basically 140 paint brushes.
Sweet.
And so as those start to arrive, I'm going to put them all together and kind of do a little, I don't know, 5-10 minute episode talking about which brushes I bought, see if any of them work okay. You know what I mean? And like, if any of them came mangled or, you know, I'm not one of those people though that are going to take it and put them in my garage for a week before I touch them. I know people are doing that with their mail right now. I have a crap ton of alcohol wipes. I'll just wipe them down if I need to. If I'm,
Dude, all you have to do is put them out there for 3 days.
yeah, but if I use an alcohol
You don't have
wipe,
to keep
it's
it
like,
out there for. Oh, that's a pain in the ass. Just put them outside. They come in, and then you stick them in your garage while you're doing your other paint jobs because you got a bazillion of them.
I have a problem, Dan. I can't wait. Come on, you tell me that you'd be able to wait if you got just a new box set. Let's say you ordered those Cinnabon
totally
Nights. If those came at your front door right now, you'd wait for 3 days.
No, I'd open them up outside and then say, "Oh, this is awesome," and then I'd bring them inside and they'd sit for 6 months before I had a chance to paint them.
6 months? You're increasing your speed.
Yeah, I'm getting fast now. I'm on my 8th edition box set that I'm starting to work on. Yeah.
Nice. And you've got a box of stuff sitting in my house for when we get a chance to meet up again.
Oh,
yeah,
shit, that's right.
You got all the 7th edition Dark Angels and then some.
Who needs? Yeah, because who doesn't need more Terminators and?
Well, you have. There's 5 Terminators from the box set, and then there.
Oh, that's it? Just 5? Oh, okay, that's easy. I only have like 25 sitting on my desk right now.
And there's another.
They're like punching all my scissors.
There's another 15 metal ones.
Oh shit, metal ones? Oh god, those are just gonna sit for decades.
Yeah, I have a bunch of metal ones, and I think they're almost all Dark Angels. Because it was remember they released all those in metal around the same time that they released the Dark Angels version of Space Hulk.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
They're nice. They're nice.
Gosh, they're so. I gotta clean them all. Oh my god, that'd be a.
Most of the metal ones, well, you have to clean the metal, like to do the mold lines and stuff. But most of the metal, they're not painted at all, so you don't have to strip them.
Yeah, but the mold lines are just like you gotta get like sandblasters, and files and shit. That's all right. I'll just spray paint them. Like what was it? I did one of my. Well, the other funny thing is when with the metal guys, you can't see it, all the mold lines, and when you spray paint them, you're like, okay, I think I got it, and you spray paint them, and you see a freaking line just like glaring out there. It's like, shit, I gotta freaking resand this shit and
oh yeah.
So I've done that like 3 figures this week already. I'm like,
well, I figured out that if you take, so I do that Vince Venturella hobby cheating thing a lot of times and do the. Black, gray, white, do the Zenithal black all over, gray from 45 and white from 90 degrees. And then I'll put a wash on it. I've been actually using golden transparent shading gray, as a wash, which is fantastic. It's a beautiful paint. It is a little glossy, so you do have to hit it with some matte medium. But, then I'll dry brush with either depending on the color scheme, a warm or a cool off-white. And that if you got a mold line, man, that mold line will jump out, put a flag on it and say, hey, look at me. I'm here. You will never be able to unsee me. So yeah, if you're ever having trouble playing mold lines, man, that's the trick. And yikes. One of the cool things though, I did learn this little trick, by accident. So, Reaper Bones figures, there's a lot of times that the mold lines are really a pain in the butt to get rid of. And a lot of times they're really nasty in areas of fur. So I tried this. I wasn't sure if this would work, but I used Woodland Scenics water effects, like the gel stuff that's supposed to like make waves and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I put some of that on and then kind of peaked it with a brush after it dried for a couple minutes. Perfect. It completely covers the mold lines in like fur and looks natural because it's it's stiffened, it becomes hard. There's no way I could say that with that.
I know. Were you playing with it or
It
something?
solidifies. It solidifies and is easy to paint over. So we talked a little bit about it before. Our interview this week is with Tim Yonker from Ouroboros Miniatures, who successfully run, I believe, 6 campaigns now on Kickstarter. He does mostly resin miniatures. He's done a few like smaller like gaming scale miniatures, but for the most part he focuses on things like busts and larger size figures. So it's a great interview, and it's interesting perspective to listen to his journey from being a gamer and painter now to this business side.
Well, welcome to the show, Tim. It's good to have you here. It's funny. We've chatted back and forth in the past over email and on Kickstarter campaigns, so it's really nice to actually be able to talk to you quasi in person.
Yeah, it's you've been around a long time, since the beginning, really. So
That's
always
true.
appreciate that we appreciate our backers, but I finally speak to some of the Americans, because I do speak to people who spot so far away, so it's actually quite nice.
So let's kind of start out with that world. Talk to us about how you got started in the hobby. Now, or before we started up the interview, it said you'd been in the business about 30 years, or been in the industry for 30 years. That's impressive.
I've been in. Of course, I started out as a hobbyist myself. I think I was 12 years old when I got my first brush in with miniatures and games. Fantasy and science fiction long before that in the form of comic books. But yeah, I think I started with Warhammer, I think 2nd or 3rd edition. And I always loved the look of thing. I liked the game as well, but I always wanted more background stuff. And I really dream away with the stories Games Workshop wrote back then. And I always found myself doing quests and stuff like that in my head. And I think, maybe back then the first seeds of Ouroboros miniatures were playing. Yeah. Then about 10 years ago, no longer, 12 years ago, I started thinking, time to do something with all the ideas I have. And it took a while longer to actually do something with them. But yeah, all in all, I've been involved with games and miniatures for 30 years now. Yeah.
Awesome. So let me ask you a follow-up kind of on that. What was the original start of wanting to make the company Ouroboros Miniatures? Was it just you had a bunch of ideas you wanted to come to life?
Well, that was my dog.
That's okay. That's the world we live in.
The dog is very protective. No, I don't know. My daughter is now almost 8 years old, and I tried something, I think 10 years ago. It was called Oddity Miniatures, and it was more gaming scale miniatures, and it didn't really catch on, but it was a very learnful lesson. I knew that I wanted to do something, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I started thinking, what would be good to start with? And obviously, first I wanted to do a big game, and then I quickly found out it cost hundreds of thousands of euros, and money I didn't have. So I knew I had to start smaller. So I tried Oddity Miniatures, and we did a small Indiegogo campaign to help us buy the rights to a few orcs that were sculpted by one of my heroes, Paul Mueller. And it went all right, but I quickly found out that that wasn't for me at the time. And I was lucky because Hassle-Free Miniatures, which I already knew, contacted me and said, "Hey, do you want to sell those sculpts to us?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." And actually made some money. And I thought, I'm actually getting better and better at this. So yeah, it was for me a very learnful experience, and by doing it that way, selling it off, I knew I had a bit more financial room to play with and do the stuff I really wanted to do, and that was a lot of pictures. They're thinking about what do I want to do. It took quite a few years, to be honest, because it's hard to get ideas out of your head onto paper and explaining them to other people so they can actually make. But it's funny, my daughter Lynn was born and everything just connected, and I could let go of the ideas I had in my mind and I could write them down, and I could tell them to other people what I meant. And one of my best friends in the industry, Christopher, to help me start up Ouroboros miniatures. He did the first 5 sculpts for the company of the Fey range, and yeah, never looked back.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. So when, I guess we can let's kind of touch on that a little bit. When you're, how do you choose an artist, or do you see artwork and that inspires you to want to create the miniature, or does it kind of work both ways? How does that necessarily work? Because I know I've seen all the artwork for, like, I first found you through the CP New Skin campaign, which I think was your second campaign, and it was mind-blowing. There's beautiful artwork, incredible piece of resin, absolutely incredible figure. So how, like, for something like that, was that something that was in your head and then you had an artist concept it out, or kind of how did that one work?
In the case of New Skin, CP New Skin, it was done by Dave Keenan. I found the image online. I had it in my inspiration folder. At least thousands of that I have in my folders, because that's a hobby of mine that stands alone now. And so my wife goes nuts about it. I can sit behind the computer and just look at cool art days on end. Yeah, sometimes it inspires me to make something which is similar. It's not the same. Sometimes I like something so much, in this case CP New Skin, that I might ask Dave if I could buy the rights to make a bust from it. And Dave is such a nice guy. He very generously offered us we could just make a bust from it. So he was quite happy when I sent him just a few copies of the bust. And we were both happy, and so I don't think you have to pay lots of, which is sometimes the case. I mean, I've asked other artists, and they ask €1,000, and obviously we cannot do that.
Right.
But Dave just let us use it for free, and the same goes for the end manager. I saw the art online, and I thought, that could be a really cool bust. And he said, yeah, sure. It's really, really cool that when something like that happens, and then they see the end result, and they're really proud of it as much as we are.
Right.
And yeah, it's really cool. And sometimes, most of the ideas I've had in my head for years on years. And sometimes I just see cool art things. I'm just going to ask them, and if we can afford it, we'll happily pay for it, because they need to eat too. So yeah, it's a bit of a mix of both. Some are entirely original ideas. It's found on the internet, and we ask them, and sometimes we get to use them. That's really cool.
Nice. Yeah, that's very cool that it works out. I'm sure that there's got to be a weird feeling to see their 2-dimensional art now turn into something 3-dimensional too. That's kind of probably cool for them as well. Yeah,
most of the times when we send them the bust, because we always send them the bust, even if they don't ask for it, they go like, "Oh, it's so cool!" and why didn't I think of it? And sometimes they're just happy that their art is appreciated. I mean, it's funny because usually the art that strikes me, which I want to use, are one-off pieces which they done entirely in their free time for themselves. And for them to see an idea come to life, which they probably hadn't looked at for 3 or 4 years, because I think CP News created somewhere in 2013 or 14 even. So it was an older piece. The end manager was even older, and then some crazy guy from the Netherlands comes along and says, "Oh, it's cool. I want to make a buzz of it." And I go like, "Oh, well, okay." And a few months later, they have a physical product in their hand, and
That's nice. Yeah, so
it's very weird to take their baby and make it a reality. Yeah.
That's very awesome. And I was wondering too then, so you get the artwork, permission to do the artwork, and then do you do the 3D sculpting, or does somebody else do the 3D sculpting? How does that work for you?
I wish I could do the 3D sculpting myself. And I keep saying I want to learn it, but there are so many people who are much better at it than me. So over the years, I've built up a portfolio of sculptors, and I do have a few regulars like Edgar Morokzak and Daniel Charba, and then a few like Radmir Akhmetov. I use them all the time because we've in a few years we've been working together. It's more than a business relationship. We've become actual friends. I'll probably be traveling to Romania once this crisis is over to talk to Daniel Chorba in real life, and he's going to teach me to do ZBrush, or at least beginner's course, because I would love to do it myself. I've done some polymer sculpting in the past, and I'm not really good at it or anything. I just like to make very weird little critters. To make something that is only an idea in your head and physical somehow, wow, that must be such a rush. So I do want to learn it, but probably I'll be too impatient to actually do it.
I understand that for sure. I get impatient trying to sculpt a koi for a diorama I'm doing. I'm like, never mind. I'll buy one off Etsy.
But it doesn't work.
So let me ask this: when you're, how do you find your painters to do your box art?
Yeah, well, the benefit of being in this hobby for such a long time is that I know quite a few people, and some of them are really, really good painters. And in the beginning, some of them helped me out, like May Aguilar of May Art and Antonio Rodriguez, and they're I think some of the best painters in the world, and also very nice people, especially Antonio. We're so humble. I mean, I know he works full time and then he paints stuff and he teaches people and he doesn't really ask much in return. And when he sent me the box art of Fractured, my mind was absolutely blown, because it was almost identical to the artwork which was done by Oleg Kalainikov. And I was like, dude, how did you do this? And then he told me he painted in a few days. And I'm like, oh, okay, stop it now, And he gave me, I won't mention the price, but he gave me such a low price that I almost felt bad about it. So I paid him more. And he was like, what are you doing? And I said, no, man, you've done such good work. And he keeps offering to help me. And so it's basically like that. Often it's paying some money, obviously, and a lot of the painters are happy to just receive some products in return with a little bit of money. And how do I find them? Well, sometimes I find them. I just ask them because I like the work. Sometimes they find me. They send me an email. Oh, I love your stuff, and is there anything I can do to help you with? And sometimes something like that happens. And so far I've been really lucky to find good people who want to help me and who like our stuff, so they get some busts and miniatures in return. And I'm always amazed when I receive a box art, how good it is. It's always better than what you see on the pictures. And that's basically how it works. You just send them a message. Do you want to paint something? Okay, cool. And it's quite easy, actually.
Well, that's pretty cool because I know CP Newskin also what kind of drew me to it because you had one of my absolute favorite artists in Roman LaPlante working with you on that one.
Right.
And so that was kind of like I'm like awesome bust tutorial by Roman win-win, right? Easy
Yeah.
win right there
Well,
for sure.
in Roman's case was quite funny actually because um, I don't know. He told me, I think back then he was going through a relationship breakup or something like that, and he sent me a message that if if I had a copy of New Skin, if he could paint it, because for him it was showing the mood he was in. He was letting go of the old, going to a new direction. So the CP New Skin pulling off her skin to show her true nature, that she's an android, and pulling off the fake skin and going into a new life. It was very symbolic for him. And I said, yeah, sure, you can do that. And we were right about the time of launching the Kickstarter. And I said, well, maybe we can do one better. Maybe you can do a little article about how you feel and the stuff, how you put your emotions into painting it. And yeah, we did, and that was the article. And it's really nice article that shows more than miniature painting. It also shows the emotions that can happen while you're painting something, And I think often when you have emotion or an emotional bond to a product and you paint it, it will get so much better than when you just blah 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 splashing paint on. Oh, nice, it's finished and done. But if you have an emotional connection to it, it will always show through the paint job. So
Yeah, that's always one of my fascination with stuff is with miniature art is always the narrative side of it. And with a lot of the artists that have done work for your company, I look at the busts that they've done and I see a story. I mean, I can immediately pick up on a vibe, a story, and that's what's kind of very cool about the product line that you have. It always seems to have uh, a coherence to it, like the Yakuza, and then the fairies. I even started out with the barbarian family, right? That was that, which I thought was awesome. So,
yeah, I was trying to do a story behind them. And actually, I don't always write down the ideas I have with a model. And Richard Sharp, a friend of mine, he always said, yeah, but you don't have a story behind him. I said, oh, yes, I do. And then I started telling him the stories and said, you should write it down and put it on the model. Like, okay, I didn't think that people would enjoy that to see that, but apparently they do. So actually, in the last Kickstarter we did, the CP Tribes, I tried to write down some very short and simple background information, and yeah, I got a lot of feedback about that, which was really cool.
right, there's a couple different like kinds of people. Like I know when people ask Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam what a song means, he won't tell them because he's like, I'm not taking that away from whatever you think it means is what it means. And so he didn't want to. He doesn't want to take that personal side away. But the other side of it too is though, it's kind of fun to see the narrative. You telling me what you think of a miniature story won't change what I think. What I think of the story. I might have a new story in my whole head. It may be a different way to see it. And so it's always. I love reading those little, even if they're just little tiny blurbs that kind of get me rolling on a deeper story. I think they're awesome. No, I appreciated that in the last Kickstarter, for sure. I think you should definitely keep doing that. That's my 2 cents worth,
It's good to hear because I specifically did short intros. That is just a little glimpse of the story I have in mind. Because if I would start writing that down, and I don't think I'm really much of a writer, so if I start writing down the complete background, it wouldn't be fun. But yeah, just giving a few glimpses here and there to get people thinking about it, I would enjoy that myself as well. I mean, that's the whole thing about comics. I used to read 3 or 4 pages, and when I really got into the story, I often put it away and started to think how I would think it would go. It's really weird, I know. And then started reading, I'm like, that's not what I had in mind. mine was better. Stuff like that. So yeah, just giving a glimpse is a lot of fun for me as well. And then if people want to continue thinking about it, that's even better.
And it's just like with comic books, like you said, there are certain artists out there that don't need words. Like to me, I like a substantial number of comics by Jay Lee. I don't need words. I can read that story from the artwork. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that you know exactly what's going on, and then you get words and you're like, nah, put that. I'm gonna cover the words. And just go from there.
I did with a couple of comics. I only have them for the art. Like I love Travis Charest. I haven't been into comics for a long time now, but I love Travis Charest's work, and there's a bunch of others I really enjoy as well. And I don't need to read the story. It's the art that really gets my imagination going and flowing. And I often take a character which I think is really cool, and then I'll just create my own stories if I want, and sometimes the stories aren't really that good. And there's a European comic which I really love. It's called the Black Moon Chronicles, and the artwork is it's fun, it's cool, it's really high fantasy, but the story after part 3 or 4 is so bad, but I still love it. So yeah, it's just taking something and making it your own. That's the most fun.
I'm gonna use this as an excellent opportunity to follow up. So, is there a kind of a dream project that you have that you'd like to do that for your love of comics and and artwork and stuff along those lines? And usually I ask this question as is there a miniature that hasn't been made that you'd like to see make? But you're a miniature maker, so you can kind of do that. I always use the example of I would love to see figures from the Dark Tower series from Stephen King. Is there something like a dream project that you have in mind that you could share? You may not be able to share, but
there are a few actually. The thing is, I have literally thousands of ideas for my own miniatures, but I already have in mind in a few years, because doing miniatures of IPs is usually very expensive.
Right.
But there's actually quite a few which I would like to bring out as miniatures. I would like to bring back the before mentioned the Black Moon Chronicle series, which was done by Elliot Games a long time ago, a company from French, which went under. Really shame, because their miniatures, I think they're still this day, and I think it's more than 12 years ago, maybe even longer. To this day, they're still some of the best miniatures I have ever seen. They were done by Jacques Alexander Gillois, Alain Diego Carrasco, Thomas David, and they're some of my sculpting heroes. And it's a shame they went under. I tried to buy the rights, but I never got a response. Or at least try to have some information about buying the rights. And what I would love to do is do 75mm versions of them and large bust versions. So not really the gaming scale, and just do showcase figures with them. But as I said, that's quite an expensive undertaking. So yeah, maybe in 5 years or so, maybe earlier, I could reach out to the French artists, the Olivier Ledroit and Faudeval, I think they're called. Maybe they can give me the rights, or sell me the rights to do large scale figurines. And the next one is maybe gonna be sounding a bit silly, but I grew up with maybe what started all my love for fantasy, and that's ElfQuest. I would love to do large scale ElfQuest figures.
Oh, that would be cool. That doesn't sound silly at all. No, that sounds awesome. I'm good with that.
There's been, I think Valparta did them 30, 40 years ago, maybe even. But they were really small, and I like them, but they're definitely not up to the standard which we could do this day. And I think there's a statue and a few busts which are, not as good as I think they can be done. So that would be a lovely project to do one day as well. Maybe Wendy and Richard Pini. I don't know if they're open to such things, but I'd like to have try that as well. Yeah, and there's a bunch more.
With what you said just a moment ago about wanting to do larger display size figures, now, did you have that transition in your painting world too? Did you go from gaming to really not wanting to paint the gaming miniatures, but now wanted to paint display pieces or collectible type pieces?
Actually, it wasn't really about painting because I stopped painting quite some time ago.
Okay.
Not because I didn't enjoy it anymore, but yeah, I really like creating stuff now. And for me, creating a bust or a miniature together with the concept artist, together with a concept artist and a sculptor, is so rewarding for myself. I really get a kick out of it. And painting, I enjoy it too. I painted last year because I had a bet with Petra Lehrman to paint a dragon bust we did. And it was the only bust she didn't have at the time from us. And so I gifted it to her, and then we made a bet that we should finish it for the skill model challenge last year. And we did. And I almost forgot about it. So I started painting 3 days before the event. And I finished it. And I was like, oh, I actually enjoyed it. And I knew I didn't really realize I enjoyed it so much until my wife said, "You've been so quiet for the last 3 days. You didn't speak to me at all. You were just in the zone." And then I'm like, maybe I should paint more often. But yeah, so no, it's not really going from gaming scale to large scale. But the reason we decided to do large scale was more that we could more. So the canvas is bigger, and yeah, it's just we're getting older as well. So tiny pictures harder to look at and paint. And maybe I'm just growing up. I don't know. I've no real clear explanation why we went with the bigger scales. No.
It's probably a combination of all those things,
Yeah, probably, yeah. Yeah.
So
That's actually funny because I'm working on a new project with two of my best friends, Alexei Konev, who sculpted the twins, which will be part of the Kickstarter by Mini Masterworks, so Studio X, and Sanderstorm, who's a friend who lives close by, and he wasn't really into miniature gaming, but he's a friend. He comes here all the time, and he started to develop a love for miniatures, and he really wants to do something right now. And he said, "Can I hire you as a designer?" I said, "Yeah, oh, sure, I can always do stuff. What's in it for me?" And then I chatted with Alexei about it, and he wanted to do something for himself as well. I said, "Well, maybe I can put you two together, and I can be on board as a creative consultant, something like that." And yeah, that will actually be a new company, but it's funny because that company will actually focus more on small scale miniatures, like 28, 32 millimeter stuff. And yeah, we're now working on the first few sculpts, and they're actually amazing. And I said, "Oh, you're not going to just do them in 32 millimeter. We're going to do them in large scale as well." So yeah, maybe large scale is what I love these days. I still love small miniatures as well. I've got a big collection of familiar miniatures. The smaller the better. And so, yeah, I love everything. Statues. Yeah, you'll probably see a lot of things coming the next few years that you think, okay, this is different. This is different. But I don't like to do this thing all over again. I like to explore new possibilities and adventures. So I'm afraid.
well, you say that, but I have to say this. How many different sizes now is CP New Skin available for? And the most recent one you just launched, how big is that thing?
Well, it was always meant to be just the bust until so many people kept asking for a full-size figure, and we're like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna cave in and do one with legs, and we decided on 75 millimeter, which was the and that did really well. And I'm supposed to do anything that is until Wally Moran, who is another good friend of mine, he said, Tim, what would it take for you to send me the STL file so I can print an actual large size version of her? And I was like, oh, dude, you're breaking me. You know, we're not allowed to do it, or we were allowed, but I wasn't really seeing the necessity. No, I don't know the word necessity. Is that correct? My English
Yes.
is not my first language.
No,
I didn't
that's
see the
right.
necessity. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But then he said, well, you know what? If you let me print it, I'll print one for you as well. I said, okay, deal. So I sent over the STL file, and then I think it took about 9 months or so, you know. And he sent me the large scale, which is 20 centimeters tall, and it blew me out of the water. It's so beautiful, and we're like,
Wow.
oh, this
20
is
centimeters.
nice. Yeah,
That's a big figure. Nice.
that is a big figure. It's the biggest one we've done, and we wanted to do a giant in 20 centimeters. So at least now I have a good idea of what the size of that one will be. But yeah, it was beautiful, and I took it with me to last year's scale model event, and the response was, no pun intended, enormous. So people had us going, oh, when she's coming out, and the event it was 2 days, and I think maybe 100 people said, well, if you're gonna do it, I'm gonna buy one. I'm like, okay, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna do it? And they're like, yeah, we're gonna do it. So that's the reason why this version came out as well, and I promise it will be the last size of this one.
I don't care how many different sizes you make. It's a beautiful figure, so it's always fun to see what it looks like coming out. You know, it'd be cool to see. I'll plant this one in your head. I have the Equus Leah, which is one of my favorite busts I think I've ever laid eyes on. And actually, I'm getting ready to start painting that within the next week. And I would love to see that in a larger size too, or a full. How about a full Leah? That would be awesome too. I'm just making fun. You can't blame me for trying, you know.
I'm always here to please the supporters we have, because I do like to think our company operates a bit different. We're not really a company because actually we do have a website, but we don't even have a web store. I like selling through Facebook, through email, and through Kickstarter more, because the interaction with the followers is much nicer, you know. It's more personal. And I mean, I'm always here to please them as well, because they've helped us grow where we are right now. And I never could imagine that we would be where we are right now. We're almost at 60 releases in 3 years' time. It's insane. So yeah, if enough people say, yeah, we want a large scale version of something, then yeah, find enough people that I can at least
make it worth your while, at least, right? We got to make it worth your while. You know, that's then I understand.
No, actually, I will, but not to lose money on it. You know, I don't mind. I don't even mind breaking even if the project is really cool, because I love just doing what I do. And it's just my side gig. How strange that may sound, because I work full time for the Dutch railroads. But I would love to do it full time one day. And if 50 people say, oh, I want a large scale Leah, yeah, sure, make it happen. I'm open to suggestion. And yeah, maybe there's a few other figures that would be cool with legs. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. We're actually working on a few things. So Yeah,
That's awesome.
you'll see.
Yeah. Well, I was actually going to, I'm just, I have the opportunity to talk to a miniature maker, so I figured I got to throw something out there, right? But let me ask you this question: is the Aquas line done, or do you have more plans for that line?
There are 2 more busts finished. The scopes are
wonderful.
finished. Yeah, and the plans were to actually release them the 8th of March, last March, because that was International Women's Day. But then, the world economy already started to drop a bit back then, and also, there were some delays. There were several factors that couldn't happen back then. But they are sculpted. They should be printed somewhere next month, and there are more coming. And I mean, as long as they make back what they cost, I don't mind doing more. As I said, if it breaks even, I'm okay with it. I'm not in it to make a lot of money. It would be cool to do it full time one day, but at this point, I would be happy to do miniatures and just breaking even, so I can do more cool stuff.
Right. No, that line is just incredible too. It's just such a, I mean, really, what besides, I've kind of lost interest in the kind of super busty, scantily clad barbarian women, and now I've become more interested in kind of like things like the Equus line are totally right up my alley now. And so when I first saw that, I was like, oh man, he's gonna take all my money. this guy in the Netherlands is taking my money. So no, that's exciting to hear. Now, will those be released separately, or are you going to or will those be in another Kickstarter down the road?
No, there will be. I always try to do only one Kickstarter for a certain range. I think the only one I did it for 2 times was the Fey range, and that wasn't not even planned, but I overinvested myself with a few busts, and it needed to make some money. And it did all right. It didn't do a whole lot, but it was enough so I could continue doing stuff. Nice. But the XQ line, no, that they're just going to be released regularly. The duo of them at a really nice price, probably similar to the price you paid in the Kickstarter. So that's actually quite cheap, I think. Yeah. Maybe later this year, because this whole year, due to the coronavirus, is messed up for us as well. Right. And I almost didn't release New Skin Deluxe because I wasn't sure if people would actually be up for it. And apparently it was quite the opposite. People said, yeah, do it. I'm waiting for you to do it. And she done really well. So we'll try to keep it slow because we know these are difficult times. And in the end, it's just a niche hobby. And while get a lot of satisfaction out of it, I know everybody has plenty to work on, and there are more important things happening right now. You got to support your family, you got to eat, a lot of people losing their jobs. Right. I had a few guys who had reserved the deluxe telling me, I'm sorry, I asked you to put one aside for me, but I lost my job. And I said, well, it's still aside for you, and the price will stay the same whenever you come. If it's now, next year, I don't really care. Because I know what's going on, and I'm fortunate enough and blessed that I have a really good job, and I make good money. So it's, as I said, I'm not doing this to get rich. I wouldn't mind, but especially now there are much more important things to worry about. So we'll tone down the release schedule for this year. And I'm not even counting this year financially. What will come, and we'll see next year how things have gone. But it's strange times.
It's strange times too. But I also think that one of the things that I'm noticing is really kind of how important the hobby is, that it's helping keep people sane and that it's helping, you can pass time, you have something to do, a creative outlet, and even, families painting together and things along those lines. So yeah, while it's not, you got to feed and support, but it is an added bonus that if you have a hobby like this, excuse me, sorry.
Games is
It's always wonderful that to have the hobby to take your mind off the crazy crap that's going on, right?
exactly. We live in a small village, and we have a nice house, and there's a playground next to us. So my daughter gets to. It's been lovely weather. My daughter gets to play out. We've been sitting in the sun. But there are also a lot of people living in a city with 5 in a small apartment. I can't imagine how it would be for them in this today. And as I said, we're fortunate, and it's right. I thought quite the opposite. People wouldn't appreciate doing new releases, but it's the other way around. And as I said, I have some people telling me, messaging me. I said, I really want it, but I can't get it right now. Hope you understand. I said, dude, yeah, I really understand right now. And then my offer is always like, message me whenever you want it. If you don't want it, it's okay too. Whenever you want it, and I will work something out. And I thought about launching Kickstarters. Who would be insane enough to launch a Kickstarter right now? But they're actually doing quite well. So, for me, it's kind of difficult, though, because maybe even if it's not my problem, for example, if you can eat or not, it's not my problem, but I do care about it. And maybe that's a bit odd, but it's always been like that, if I don't like to see people struggling, and I always try to come up with a solution that's good for everybody. And I think, especially in our hobby, there's a lot of fantastic people who are always ready to help each other out. And to me, that's why I'm so proud to be in this hobby, because going to shows, I've never seen fights, I've never seen angry customers, and I know there are a few bad eggs, but mostly 90%, it's all cool people, and we're one big happy family. Maybe, that's what I like about it. So, I think if one hobby segment will only thrive from this time, it's a miniatures industry for sure.
Yeah, definitely, and I see it too, and I see all these stores in the U.S. I don't know if they're doing it where you are, but like you can actually do curbside delivery, so you can order them up, call them up, order what you want, pay for it, and then you drive up and they walk out and deliver it to your car, so you don't have to go into the store.
Well, it would be weird because you live in the U.S. and I'm in the Netherlands. So it's hard for me to drive to your curb, but
right. No. I mean, I just mean that they're finding, hobby stores are finding ways, at least here in the U.S. Now, Games Workshop completely shut down, but a lot of the other like little local hobby stores are trying to find ways to kind of stay afloat. So that's pretty cool.
But you should definitely support your local store, because as much as I love the internet, I hate it too. It's a love-hate relationship, because it really damaged a lot of stores who used to be there. I think in the Netherlands there's just a handful of stores left, and we actually used to take trips, 2-3 hour trips, to go to a store just to check it out, and we would buy something small or something big. Me and my brother and a friend of mine, we would travel I used to live in Amsterdam, and we used to travel to Den Bosch, which was about, I think, maybe an hour and a half, just to look at the store. And those stores, sadly, are no longer here because, online it's cheaper, and it definitely hurt that part of the industry as well, which is a shame. So we should stores we have left for sure.
Yeah, and my co-host and I kind of live about 45 minutes to an hour away from each other, and all of the stores where I live right outside Washington, D.C., all of those stores, because the rent and such is so high, have died.
Yeah.
And where he
Yeah.
lives, just 45 minutes away, he's got like 6 great hobby stores, and that's not including Games Workshop. And I'm like, come on, I gotta drive an hour, And it's and there's still a couple of those stores used to be up here, but moved down to there because the rent was cheaper. Because living by DC, it's one of the most expensive places in the world to live. So, yay.
This treasured. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. So. One of the things that we always like to ask people who we bring on is that our motto of our podcast is better, braver, and happier. Do you have any advice for our listeners? And it doesn't have to be painting advice; it could be hobby advice of some sort about how to kind of become better, braver, and happier in the hobby.
Just ask me about what's the meaning of life. It's almost the same, but.
It's 42 though, right? In 42, the meaning of life.
Yes, 42. I just turned 42 a few weeks ago, so I know.
Happy belated birthday.
Yeah,
happy belated birthday.
Thanks. I know the answer to everything is 42. But no, what I can give people is there's actually 2 things. One is really simple. People look at some of the stuff we do in this. Oh, it's so beautiful. But I could never do it justice, so I won't buy it. And the first question I always ask them is, if you paint it, would you enjoy it? And they say yes. I say, you should buy it, even if you don't show it to anybody else. And that goes for every miniature or bust you see from which company, whatever. I don't give a rat's ass. I almost said something else. Is that if you see something you like, and even if you're afraid to paint it, just do it. I mean, if you enjoy it, it's worth it. And you're doing it for yourself. You're not doing it for somebody else. And I know it's in these days you can get intimidated quite fast by all these badass painters with their almost perfect, flawless paint jobs. But I mean, if as long as you enjoy it, do it. And the second thing I want to say is, if you have a dream, I waited so long before just trying to do my dream. Don't keep it a dream. If you can do it, and you'll see it's very rewarding. So if you want to get into the miniatures industry, which thousands upon thousands others are doing it last year, just do it. It's actually not as high level as you think it is. You just need to be smart. You need to think things out, and it takes commitment, but it's so much fun as well. I think if I wouldn't have done it 3.5 years ago, I would have just been bored out of my skull, and I wouldn't be as happy as I am now right now. So yeah, dare the dream, but also do them. Try to realize them.
Well, that's awesome. I love hearing that type of stuff, because that's that very first thing kind of hit really home with me, that the whole, that's so out of my skill level, above my, I could never paint that correctly. And I think you're absolutely right. Just do it,
Yeah, just do it. Yeah. I have had so many people saying that to me at shows, and then you always see the same face at shows the next year. If you go to the same show, and they come back and they say, you were right. Look, I painted it. It's crap. Well, I had so much fun, And then I said, it's not crap. You enjoyed it. Maybe if you compare it to the other stuff, you can think it's crap, but it's actually not crap. What is crap? I said, I think you're missing the point if you think that every model or bust should be the same as one of the top level painters. I mean, that would be insane. If during the process you have fun, so then it's worth it, and you can always strip and start over.
Right. Well, and art's subjective too. Who's the better artist, Van Gogh or Dali? I mean, how do you say that? You know what I mean? It's art is subjective, so
glass half full or half empty. they all have their merits, and I think if you ask me, I say Van Gogh because he's a Dutchman.
Right.
No,
Well. Hey.
But yeah, he was not because I do like his paintings, but he was as crazy as I am, I think. And Salvador Dali, well, he was an absolute nutter as well. So, but ask me if I would choose between them, I wouldn't even choose because while I like their work, I can appreciate their. I like other artists more. Like I'm a big fan of Rembrandt.
Mm-hmm.
That's more my cup of tea.
Right.
But if you would ask me to mention a name we've had in the conversation earlier, if I could have a printing of Van Gogh or Vermeer, I would rather have a printing of Travis Charest on my wall. So it's subjective, you know. Does that mean the other one is bad? Nope, it's just different. And why not like both?
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's no reason not to enjoy both. Everything has its different qualities. So, but I would be remiss given the fact I just launched today an episode where I interviewed John McAvoy, Mini Masterworks. Damn, I keep saying that the wrong way. Mini Masterworks. I'm kind of curious, how did that partnership come about, and can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, actually, a mutual friend of ours, Terry Cowell, who used to work for Figure Painting Magazine, the online magazine,
Mm-hmm.
contacted me and he said, Tim, I've got this guy, he's working on a portable paint station. I was like, oh, okay, you know, I had no idea what that could be. And he wants to do a special miniature for the Kickstarter campaign, or he would like to work together with you. I was like, okay, you know, and I'm always open for collaborations. And I think another company he was talking to didn't exactly drop out, but weren't as easy to communicate with as me. And I'm I'm quite open. I'm almost there. I'm a night owl, so the chances are that if you send me a message at 2 a.m., yeah, I'll probably respond within a few minutes. And some people are going, "Are you still awake, dude? You're always there." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's the downside of having a mobile phone, but okay."
True.
But if I spend time with my family, especially my kid, believe me, the phone stays off. So, but yeah, he contacted me and said, "Oh, I'll bring you into contact with John, and yeah, maybe you can have a chat." And yeah, we did, and we hit it off right away. And he said, "What could you do for us?" I said, "Well, I think he at first had the idea to do some of the ranges we already had to incorporate them into the Kickstarter." And I said, "Well, maybe we can do one better. Maybe we can design something specially for the campaign." And he really liked that idea, so I went to work. And because there was a time issue, because it was pretty close, I said maybe I can take two busts and give them legs. So that was the hint I gave earlier.
Right.
Yeah, and he liked that idea. So we actually have two sculpts which are ready for the gunslinger and the slugger. They have legs in a slightly different pose. And then John took the timeline and made it earlier. So we came into trouble. And I said, we're lucky. I do have another project we've been working on, which is quite a special project for me. And those are the twins, which you maybe have seen.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yeah, and he liked it. It was supposed to be a special release for the World Expo, which was supposed to take place early July, and sadly got cancelled. Logical, but sad.
Right. Yes.
And I said, well, maybe we can move it up. We'll have to hurry up, but maybe we can move it up so you can use it in the Kickstarter. And we've been working really hard. I set my printer to work. My cost just informed me he's going to send me the first few copies. So they should be en route to John this week. And I think John is quite happy with them.
Oh, dude,
yeah.
yeah. I think you knocked his socks off. To be honest, so that and the project that you picked to go with it, the twins. I mean, it's incredible. You know, the sculpt is gorgeous. At least what I've seen of the render. Because I think you posted a picture of it too, didn't you?
Sorry?
I think you posted a picture of it at one point on your Ouroboros your Facebook page, I think.
Yeah, I posted it when we knew we were going to do it for John, I think. I kept it secret for him. Maybe I did a little teaser with it. I'm not sure. I think I showed it first in the newsletter we did, and we only posted the silhouette. And then when John said, "Here's the sculpt," I knew I could post it as well.
Right.
And it's a massive. My caster said, "If you throw it at somebody, you will kill him." So
Nice.
as a fist. So it's a really, he's a cannonball. And then the offset with the little girl. I liked that idea. I wasn't sure how well it would be received, but I'm known to like to gamble a bit, like the Squee ladies. I had no idea how they would do, and we were really surprised about how well they were received. And with this one, it was the same. I mean, I love it. I only do stuff I love, and I think Alexa knocked it out of the park. And then. But I wasn't really sure. Some people told me, yeah, maybe it's more gaming miniature. And I said, oh, okay. So that's actually a good thing for me because the gamer, it will appeal to gamers as well.
Right. It's a bigger market, actually. Yeah.
It's massive, yeah. And I think the copies he's sending, it's more than a kilo. And he's only sending me 4 or 5 copies. So, yeah, he's a big dude. So I think I'll put it together as soon as I get it, and I'll post pictures online, and that will give a sense of scale. But I think when people see it in real life, they'll go, "Oh, that's big." So I think he's almost 12 centimeters tall. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, see, and when I first saw that piece, the first thing I thought of is because as the world of miniature painters, the number one word that we have is contrast, right? And so this is like it's such an incredible model to show the two different, so many different types of contrast, just not light and dark. You know what I mean? Like you got the size, you got the textures, you got, you know what I'm saying? Like all those different things are in that model to begin with. And so it's kind of, I can't wait to see what some of these famous artists do with it. You know what I mean? That's a project that I'm looking forward to seeing people start working on, because that's to
tell people that they should post more pictures of what they've got from us, because we do see judging our sales, there should be many more paint jobs available. So if you have any paint jobs you haven't posted online, even if you don't want to post it online, just send it to me, because I love seeing painted stuff, and I don't care how good you think or how bad you think you are. I love to see that. Everybody has his own level, and I can appreciate all of them. But yeah, really show me, because I love to see it.
Nice. Yes, and the Leah bust, when I've actually got it primed and some light sketch on it, but that'll actually be, when I finish that, my first full complete bust that I've done, and so. A little nervous about it because it's something new, but I'm excited about it at the same time. The CP new skin is still sitting in the box. That's something I have a lot of ideas for that I can't process. You know what I mean? Like you see a miniature and you're like, okay, I want to do this. No, wait, I want to do this. There's so many possibilities with that one that I can't find a definite answer to what I want to do.
That's actually cool to hear, because it means you've spent so much time already about thinking how you can paint it. So I know you've been enjoying it for a while now, and that means so much to me. It means I created something that people enjoy coming back to, even if they don't paint it. They're thinking about it. Oh, no, let's do this, let's do that. And I think you're having fun already then. So.
Oh, absolutely. So what I kind of did, a lot of people use Photoshop. And like kind of lay out their color schemes, but I don't have it, and I'm not good with that type of graphic design. So I printed out a bunch of black and white copies of it and just have been painting on them. on the paper to kind of get an idea of a color scheme and how things work. But no, one of the things with that model, I know I want to do a lot of freehand, and so I'm very new to freehand, so I want to practice a little bit more and kind of work my way towards that direction because I can't see that model without tattoos. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
You know,
A lot of people say they think she's a bit a goth, and when David painted it, were like, oh, that's not how most people would see it. He used like almost pastel colors, and I simply love his paint jobs. They're insanely good,
Yeah.
but it's cool because I've also imagined her as a redhead or even as a goth. I'm actually thinking about doing a very dark sweater and painting the hair in a purple or maybe a green, but do them glow in the dark greens. So when you put up the light, she will actually light up. So
That'd be
yeah,
fun.
even I'm thinking about painting them. And well, actually, my daughter wants to paint something, and I said, well, choose something from the cabinet. I've all my stuff in the cabinet, and she wants to paint Leia as well. So I said, okay, then me and her mother will paint Leia probably in the next few weeks as well. So we can hold a little competition maybe. Just for the fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, man, I thank you so much for taking your time to be with us on the show today.
Yeah,
This has been awesome. So this is great. It's like I said when we first started talking. We had communicated a few times back and forth over the different Kickstarters of yours that I've backed, and it's kind of neat. You're always very warm, open. You love engaging with the community, and so that's your work is definitely appreciated, and I know you have a lot of fans in the community for sure.
Oh man, thanks. I appreciate hearing that. That's cool.
But thank you so much. Really appreciate
you as well.
So Dan and I would like to thank Tim Yonker from Ouroboros Miniatures for joining him. You should be able to follow him on Facebook on Ouroboros Miniatures, also on ouroborosminiatures.com. If you click their store, you can go, it'll send you to Mr. Lee's Minis, or you can email him directly from the site if you're interested in purchasing one of the miniatures or busts that he has to offer. And I will say this is not a sponsored podcast or anything along those lines, but everything that I own from Ouroboros Miniatures that I purchased, the detail is gorgeous, the models are crisp, and they're a lot of fun to paint. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or just want to tell us what you're working on in this time of COVID-19, feel free to drop us a line at listeningtopainttry@gmail.com.
And if you don't feel like writing us an email, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Listening to Paint Dry.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with an interview with Matt DiPietro from Contrast Miniatures, where we'll talk about his hobby journey, which is really interesting and intriguing, going from miniature painting to actually working for a company in the miniature painting world to owning his own business. So it'll be a lot of fun. All you have to do to become a better, braver, happier painter is just look inside your head. The answer is there. Until next time. Listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan is a production of LTPTWMD. All rights reserved. No portion of this recording may be used without the express written consent of the host. The music is Death by a Thousand Questions by Springtide. Download from the Free Music Archive on a non-commercial attribution share-alike basis. All views and opinions expressed in the show are solely the views and opinions of the person who said them. All celebrity voices, if any, were impersonated and done so poorly.